Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Tilton. I'm the Assistant Director for the Outdoor Pursuits Program out of the Department of UNT Recreational Sports. And today we are going to talk a little bit about planning for your next trip outdoors. Planning your next trip outside can be a little bit overwhelming. With so many different things to consider, where do you even start? One of the first questions that we have for folks is why they want to go outside. The answer to this question has a pretty big impact on what it is you decide to do, when you decide to do it. All of these different things that you would like to do come along. They come with some considerations, and this is the main thing that we're going to be talking about in this clinic. And really, when it comes to planning, this is how I recommend you boil down your thought process. Time frame, budget, equipment, skills and knowledge, and destination. Now, those 5 things aren't necessarily in any order that is important. They are in the order that I typically think about things, unless my motivation for getting outside is very specific to an activity or a location. But broadly speaking, if you plan and know about these 5 different considerations, you will probably be in pretty good shape with your plan. So when it comes to time frame, how much time do you have, and how do you plan on spending it? You should be asking your questions like, when do you need to be home after your trip is over? How long will the activities that you're planning take, and what the travel time is to and from your outdoor location. And based on those things, understanding when you should arrive to your trip or to your location can help inform you for when you need to leave initially. So time frame it's kind of a big overarching idea that doesn't ever slow down, right? Time is always a factor, and it's always ticking. And so if you have a lot that you want to get done, or if you want to go somewhere really far away, it's important to be efficient with your time. In addition to having that broad and general understanding of how much time things are going to take, there are also some considerations to keep in mind regarding just little extra things. So building in time for fuel stops, gas station stops, snacks, things like that. And then also, depending on where you're going, if you're planning on going somewhere that might be out of the standard cell phone network coverage, then I recommend you download your maps. If you're using a smartphone, if you're using Google Maps for driving directions, you can always download those offline maps in case of low or no signal. Finally, when it relates to as it relates to time frame, your specific directions for whenever you arrive to wherever your relocation is also important. So if you're going on a biking trip and you are driving to a state park that has bike trails, for example, you need to know where exactly those bike trails are. You can find out when you get there, sure, but that's assuming that you're going to be able to talk to the right person and that you're going to have enough time and all of those things. So figuring those things out beforehand can be really helpful. Okay, let's talk budget. There are trips that you can take that cost very little to no money, and there are trips that you can only imagine how much they would cost. And so deciding and finding out what's best for you and what it is you're looking for is sort of what this consideration is all about. Broadly speaking, when it comes to anticipated expenses, I kind of break it down into like 5 or 6 different things. We've got transportation, food, supplies, entrance fees and usage fees, lodging, and permits. So you know, all of those things are going to have a variety of different criteria. Sometimes transportation won't cost very much or anything at all. Sometimes food will be included in some sort of a deal that you've got, or it kind of varies. But I want to make sure that all of these things are at least being considered. So with transportation, those anticipated costs are commonly going to be fuel, gasoline, vehicle depreciation, if that's something that you include, and or potentially a shuttle service for longer backpacking trips, bike rides, paddling trips. Shuttling services can't be forgotten. So transportation, how much is it going to cost to get there and to get home? Food is the next consideration. Now you can, again, this is, similarly with food, you can spend very little. You can also spend a whole lot on your food for your outdoor trip. In addition to gas station stops, stopping along the way at a restaurant or grabbing fast food, that all costs money. So all of that should be factored in. Moving on from food, we get into supplies. Now I consider supplies an expense for for the outdoor, for your outdoor trip. We're going to talk a little bit about equipment as well, but supplies is something that you spend each time you go out. So things that run out is how I think of supplies, whether that's toilet paper, soap, Ziploc bags, toothpaste, all of those things. Even if you're using some of your own everyday items, sometimes you need to have something special just for the trip. So any sort of consumables that gets budgeted in as well. I don't budget in equipment, and when I say equipment, I mean things that that I'm going to use for many trips. And the reason for that is because in almost all cases, the equipment that I'm using is not for one specific trip. It's an investment that I'm deciding to make that I'm going to use on other trips. Okay, entrance fees, and usage fees are going to vary widely. All state parks, all Texas state parks have entrance fees. Now, those entrance fees can be waived if you have a Texas State Park Pass. So that's an option that costs money, but it gets everybody in your vehicle into the park with you. But every state park is going to have its own entrance fee. If you're going to a private location, there very well might be usage fees associated with that too. So just keep that in mind. Not everywhere costs money to visit. Some places do, but not everywhere does. And it's important too that you understand what their cash handling system is in place, what they have in place for wherever you're going, because some places might only accept cash, other places might not accept cash. So really, it just depends. So do your due diligence and make sure you understand what to expect. Lodging is another thing that gets rolled into our cost of trip. So that lodging can be broken up into some different thoughts. For me, I think about the lodging costs for along the way, and the lodging costs for when you are there, and lodging costs for when you are on your way back. So for multi-day travelings, like if you're going to you're going to go try to have some outdoor experience super far away, and you might want to stop at a campground along the way, or at a hotel or motel along the way, then those costs you would need to remember to associate with your trip. When it comes to camping or staying at your location once you have arrived, those costs can vary depending on what your setup, what your circumstances are. Permits are another thing to not forget. Depending on your location, your activity, and season, you very well might need permits. Locations might have a waiting period of a few days to a few months. It really just depends, but don't forget about permits if you're going to a popular area. It's worth looking up. Okay, let's talk about equipment a little bit. So now that we're through with our budget considerations and we move on to equipment, for me, I often am thinking about equipment within the context of which equipment of mine is going to be best suited for the activity that I want to do. So activity, the weather, the season, and the location, those are all things that factor into what equipment you need. But really, I want to get across the consideration when planning your trip with the equipment that you're using. Just make sure that you are thinking about the activity that you are attempting to partake in, the weather that's specific, the weather for the specific time that you're going to be there. Is it going to rain or not? Is it going to snow or not? What's the actual temperature going to be? And then the season, which has a lot more to do with climate and more broadly, your more broad expectations. And then your location specific, your equipment should be specific to your location as well. Okay, so as far as the skill and knowledge level of you, of me, of whoever is going out on this trip, it's important that we be realistic about what we know, about what we've done before, and what we can realistically accomplish. It's really fun to think of the next greatest, biggest, hardest climb or hike or backpacking trip or river. Those are all really fun things, but if you find yourself in a position that you're the one planning the next trip, if you're planning a trip, then chances are pretty good that you are the most experienced person that is going on that trip. If that's not the case, and you're sort of just taking an administrative role on this trip planning process, then that's great. But if folks are going to be relying on your skill level, your knowledge level, if you are going to be relying on your skill level and knowledge level, then it's important that we're realistic with ourselves about what we know. And taking a trip with somebody more experienced than us is a great way to learn, and it's a great way to stay safe. In particular, if you're dealing with more technically focused outdoor activities, and I think it's a great way to learn. In the meantime, now because we're all kind of at home right now, and in relation to our skill and knowledge level, now is a great time to acquire a better theoretical understanding of some locations that you're interested in, whether that's the geological history or the flora, fauna of the area, roads, trails, things like that. It's also a great time to get a better theoretical understanding of some technical skills or cooking recipes. So start checking out stuff like that, and if you're not interested in any one thing in particular right now, that's okay. You can start diving in, and you can learn whatever interests you. Okay, and then finally, destination. Now, for some folks, the destination is the reason for the trip. Like if somebody's never seen a waterfall before, then they might go on a trip with the most beautiful waterfall or the closest waterfall, depending on how much time they have, right? But the destination might be the reason. I've always wanted to go to wherever, right? So if you've always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, why have you always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon? So asking yourself that, and then maximizing the exposure to this, satisfying that reason. So whatever your goal is, or your why behind why you want to go on this trip or to this location, do it. Like, do it well. do it with a plan and do it in a way that maximizes and supplements your original goal. Otherwise, it's important that your destination matches and doesn't conflict with why you want to go out, your time frame, your budget, your skill and knowledge level, and your equipment, right? So if we can do all of those things, if we can allow the destination to, on one hand, be a reason for going, and then on the other hand, as long as it doesn't conflict with the other stuff, then it can be the it can be the location. Then that's perfect. All right, so thank you very much for joining. Again, my name is Kyle Tilton. I am the Assistant Director for Outdoor Pursuits out of the Department of Recreational Sports here at UNT. Enjoy.